Hi, everyone. You are watching The Self Connection with Ginny Brown and Kelly Pietro, where we have conversations with a group of ascended masters known as the multitude of the greater good.
And Kelly asked the questions, and I channel the answers from the multitude, who are multitudes of spiritual beings who, I guess, allow us their knowledge and are most pleased to help us learn and teach us. So thanks everyone for joining, and I hope you enjoy our videos.
And thanks for channeling Ginny. Thanks to the multitude for being here today and always. So, one of the topics we were dabbling in one day, Ginny, and so I took some notes and thought, well, this will make a good episode, which I think we've talked about in the past, but I just kind of want to go into it a little bit deeper. And that is energy of a place.
Okay.
So I guess the first question is, oh, what? Go ahead.
No, they're just changing. Different groups come in as you need different answers.
Yeah.
So I was just feeling the energy of the change. And this is I would say, a more higher energy level
Okay.
because I could feel it all in my body. Anyway, it's a different group will be answering, but it's all the multitude.
Wait, can I ask you about that though a little bit?
Good.
So just for our viewers and my own learning. So you say higher, like, does that feel like more expansive and like uplifting to you or
It's just a stronger energy. Just
just
strong.
stronger?
Higher is probably not the word to use. It's just a stronger energy.
And do you feel, when you say stronger, do you feel it stronger in your body than you normally do?
Yeah, I could really feel the change come in because lots of times it feels normal to me. I just channel the answer. But sometimes when they change groups like that, or a particular energy is needed, I can feel a much stronger energy in my body. Mostly in my heart chakra energy area. So,
And does it feel like a quickening or how would you describe that?
oh, no, it's just, oh, I don't know how to explain that. Uh, it's just the whole, it's not a quickening, it's just a strength. I don't know, Kelly, I don't know how to explain what that is. It's just a strong energy. If you were gonna, you feel the difference between the wind blowing and then when the wind picks up speed and then it could even take you back. There's a difference in the feeling of the wind. That's the only way I could tell you. It's like the wind, the energy is normal for me, and then all of a sudden it gets strong and I feel it in my whole, well, from my heart chakra going all directions through my arms, through all of me. So
I think you did a great job describing that.
it's hard to explain because it's a feeling, basically,
Yeah.
a strong feeling.
Yeah, but it's still good and it shows like what your process is. I love like that we get insight to your process and for other people who might have a similar process that they can hear you explain it and say, "Oh, I know what she's talking about. I know that feeling."
Yeah.
Oh, cool. All
All right.
right. Well, welcome to the new energy.
The one thing I do want to say, because it came to mind, is that one day the guide said to me, "Goodbye, goodbye," and it's like I was like, "What?" And they said, "Oh, don't worry." So another group is coming in. So another group of I don't know, a different energy or whatever, came in, and I was working with them. So it was like crazy, but it was like it's like such a surprise and a letdown because it was the first time it had happened. Bye. What? So anyway,
Going.
This one they didn't do that. It's just a strong energy.
That must have made you feel like, wait a minute, hang on a second.
Yeah, what's going on here?
Yeah. Bye. All right. Well, let's see what this new group has to share. Would they prefer that I ask my first question, or do they want to share an opening message
It
about?
is important to understand, my dear, we are not necessarily a new group. It is just a new energy that has joined us for our explanation of being. As you know, there are many, many, many groups of multitudes, multitudes and multitudes of energetic beings. Therefore, sometimes new energetic beings will join our group and raise our vibration, and we are ready and able to answer your questions. Do not be concerned.
Awesome. Thank you. A good explanation. Okay.
Yeah,
So
they're good at that.
talking about energy of place. My first question is, do places and objects really hold energy? Is the energy we feel from them a collection of time and space and experience? Or do people leave energies behind? What can they elaborate on this subject?
It is important to understand, my dear, energy is energy. It is everywhere, always. If one is attuned to a certain type of vibration, one will allow oneself to feel energy. Therefore, we would highly recommend that one not be concerned about where the energy came from or who the energy came from. Just know that one is open to energy and will connect with it whenever and wherever it is required to be connected with. The walls themselves, the grounds themselves, sometimes have their own energies. And in our estimation, it is not a matter of a connection with a being. It is a matter of the connection with it's like whether it's a stone, the stone's energy, or the wood's energy. It's not necessarily the connection. And what I'm getting is, for myself out of this, is it's not the connection with a person who lived in that house with a wood floor. You're getting the energy from the wood and the wood floor. That's how I'm understanding it. We would also like to add that as it is that one moves forward in one's growth of energetic self, one is able to pick up the susceptibilities that are unable to be learned or felt beforehand. When one raises one's own vibration, one is able to allow oneself to access vibrations unbefore known to them.
Okay, that's good to know. Okay, so there was something they said in there about when one is attuned to the energy. So my question is, so okay, first what comes to mind is like, does that mean they're attuning to the energy of that object, or they're attuning themselves to the capability to tune into the object? Because what comes to mind is like, let's say the object experienced helplessness. And if that person is attuned to helplessness through their own experience, is that how they're able to pick up on the helplessness because they are attuned to helplessness? Or is it that they attune to part of themselves that allows access to that particular energy of, say, helplessness?
Well, my first question on that would be, before I ask them, is can a tree, wood, walls, whatever, feel helplessness? You know, that
Yeah, so
That would be my question.
But for me, is it like, maybe it's not like the wood of the floors are feeling it, but maybe they're capturing it because they've been in the presence of helplessness that a human emitted in their presence. Do you know what I mean?
That's different, yeah.
Yeah.
It is important to understand, my dear, that each one allows oneself to feel one's own feelings, whether it be an animate or inanimate object. In our estimation, however, there are those parts of self that allow oneself to connect with oneself. Therefore, if one is in the presence of an inanimate object that is feeling less than, one is able to connect with that less than perception. However, it is not a less than that is connected to the human less than feeling of inadequacy. It is a less than in a hierarchy of being on the earth plane. In our estimation, when one is in a place, a room, perhaps, where a discussion or an argument occurred, that energy, as we understand that you are asking, is not a part of that room. It dissipates as the anger dissipates. It follows the person who exhibited it, and there is no detriment to the room and no detriment to the energy in the room, as each part and parcel have their own energy. In our estimation, it is important to understand that there are those on the earth plane who believe that if one has a mishap in a room, so to speak, or there is a negative occurrence in a room, the energy from that negative occurrence applies to that room. However, we can tell you the energy of that negative experience applies to the person and not to the room.
Okay, so I'm going to use a personal example to get clarification here. Because people will say, like, I'm feeling the energy of the room, but they just told us, no, that's not, well, not exactly, right? So, like, for example, the apartment I grew up in, I would wake up in the middle of the night and I would feel a presence. And it felt, I didn't have vocabulary for it because I was so young.
Mhm.
I didn't understand it, but I could tell I was scared of it. I felt like it was going to attack me and do awful things to me that I couldn't quite understand. And I can look back from an adult perspective and say the energy felt like sexual assault. Okay.
Mhm.
Fast forward, and that would happen often, waking up in the middle of the night, feeling it. I could tell you where in the room it existed. Because I'd have to run by it to get to my parents' room. So fast forward, that apartment, one of my friends lives there now. And she asked me to make a smudge spray, like a energy clearing spray. And I said, what's going on? She said, there's an energy in the bedroom. I said, can you show me? So I used to live in this place. And she said, right here. It feels very dark. And I was like, oh my gosh, I felt that growing up. We did the smudge spray. She cleared it. She doesn't feel it anymore. Great. And then she shared with me that the family that lived there before me, there was sexual assault happening in that room. Okay. So using that as an example, like I would verbalize that as, oh, when I was young, I was picking up on the energy of the trauma that happened in that room. But what I just heard from the multitude is like, that's not accurate. So what would be a more, that's one example, and I understand that there's probably many answers for, like the answer might change person to person, but if they can clarify, because I'm sure I'm not the only one that has experienced that, based on this topic, how could they further clarify what's actually happening there?
It is important to understand that regardless of what happened there, the energy is part and parcel of the person, not part and parcel of the room. When one feels an energy, the it's like the feeling or the perception I'm getting, it's a past life experience. In our estimation, it is not the room itself, it is the condition of the allowance of the experience that one had experienced from time to time in many lifetimes, coming it's coming to oneself or forward to oneself to be healed on the earth plane. There are many times that things happen that there is no energy, and the energy is misconstrued as being a negative energy. However, we can tell you the energy is of the person, of the person's experience, and of the condition of an energetic physical experience that one is experiencing in order to allow oneself to heal the energetic resonance that one might have. It is important to understand it is always, always an inside job. It is always a healing of oneself on the spiritual level. And it is always that part of oneself that says, I am here on the earth plane. I have come to learn. I've come to be. I've come to allow. And I am.
Okay, so that makes sense to me that because I didn't have any sort of physical abuse in my childhood, so that it would be a past life thing. It seems like my soul was allowing me to experience that feeling of waking up in the night and having that feeling in order to heal the past life energy that I experienced. I need to heal it in this life, right? Is there any truth, or I guess like what came to me as they were saying that is like, the circumstances were right for me to heal it at that point in this lifetime.
Mhm.
Does the circumstance of that room play into that, where like that room experienced that energy as well, so it's the right breeding ground for that experience to happen for me, because that perhaps those walls experienced that energy already, so it was like easy for that to happen in that room? Like, does that come into play at all?
In our estimation, in our estimation, it does not. It is a matter of when one is ready to heal, one will heal and bring to them that which they need in order to allow the healing to take place. If it is that one is ready and one says, make me a spray so that I can get rid of it. It is not the spray in itself that releases the energy. It is that person's connection to oneself that says, I am ready to release this energy and allow myself the physical manifestation of allowance. Therefore, I am ready to release that which is no longer, it's like viable or necessary to carry on.
Yeah, and that kind of goes into a little bit of the conversation we're having before we hit record, which is like it's it is the inside job. Like we might attribute to the power of clearing that energy to this spray, but I knew very well, even as I was making it, it's all about intention. And yeah, it felt like part of my childhood was healed, and I guess now knowing part of my past life was healed through the intention of clearing, simply just the intention.
Right.
And the partnership of me and my friend, like perhaps like the allowance of her helping me just by strengthening the intention, or my ability to receive her willingness to help, that kind of thing.
I don't understand what you're talking about. Your friend's willingness to help. I
Well,
would,
just me kind of like her saying, "Hey, Kelly," like I see it as she was having her own experience with whatever energy, probably hers. and I was having, yeah,
That's what
and I was having mine, and together we had this shared intention, but we really only healed ourselves and we allowed ourselves to heal ourselves
yeah.
more so because we did it together, like that whole strength in numbers. Like I allowed myself maybe to step further into it because I felt supported by her presence and vice versa.
Yeah. It is important to understand the strength is within the individual. It is not necessarily a strength in numbers per se. It is, however, an abundance of energy um, converging all at once that makes it seem that way. And it's like you said, and it's like it gives the person permission to be freer and more open in their own energy. When one believes that there is a greater energy in numbers, it is a matter of each one's permission to allow each one's own self to expand each one's self in a more open and it's like, well, I can't get this word, more open way of being. It is important to understand each one allows each one's self to grow at the time each one needs to grow. It is not a matter of who one is with, when one is with. However, one has come to help another to heal things in the time required to heal them. Do not be concerned. And, and, and that would be like you and your friend allowed each other the time together to heal it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so interesting too how our lives have done this. And even from afar, like we seem to support each other without, it's really beautiful. But
Well,
um,
it's also a part of what was planned before you came here.
yeah, and it's such a unique relationship. Like we don't talk often at all, but we both like know where we came from in our childhood. Like we came from the same neighborhood, and then we're also kind of like doing some of this esoteric stuff that our roots would be like, what the hell are you doing? So like we're there for each other in a way, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
Um, so anyway, shout out to that friend.
Yeah,
Um, I'll have to share this with her when we publish it, but
sure.
okay, so keeping on the theme of tuning into the energy of place. So, oftentimes like what comes to mind, and I don't want to focus on his experience. I want to keep the message general, but I'm going to use this experience because it's been televised and I can. There'll be mediums who go into a place like John Holland used to be featured on this television show. I forget it was called, but they would drive him to places that Rob experienced usually something traumatic. And they'll just ask him to tune into the energy. And he was like hitting the nail on the head, right? And so a lot of times people will go into a place and they will feel those things. And it's common amongst people. Strangers will come and feel the same thing. And historically, you can back it up with facts like, yeah, that did happen. That did happen. So we often associate that as the energy belongs to that place. But is what actually is happening is that you're opening up to allow yourself to receive the memory of that place instead of actually like tuning into the place. Is it opening up to more yourself? How would they describe those experiences?
It is important to understand that each of those experiences are recorded in the Akashic records. And when one can allow oneself to be in recognition of an experience that may have happened in a certain place, they allow themselves to attach or not attach, but connect to the records regarding the experience that happened in that place. The energy is not held in the place. The energy It's like connected to oneself in spirit, which is allowed to each and every other one, as spirit is energy and energy is everywhere. Therefore, when one connects to a certain place or a certain place in time, it is all contained in the Akashic records, and that person can allow him, his or herself, him or herself, to allow the information of the records to flow. That is basically how it works. It is not contained in the land. It is not contained in the, it's like the energy of that particular spot. It is, however, contained in the energy of the universe, the energy of the all that is, and the energy that is available in the Akashic records themselves. Do not be concerned.
Wow, I think that, oh, I just got really dizzy. That's such an empowering message because it relieves people from having to feel fear around places and objects.
Yeah.
So, like, I think if you go into a place and with the subconscious or conscious inquiry of, I wonder what the energy of this place is, then what you're doing there is connecting to the Akashic records to say, oh, you want to know what happened here? Here it is. And that experience is going to use your extrasensory abilities, your clairvoyance, your clairsentience, your clairgustance, your claireliance, your clairsentience, all your clairs to answer that question for you. And that experience is happening just for you in that moment and can be then, oh, that's interesting. Okay, done. I don't need to see that anymore. I want to say release, but it's not like you corrected yourself. It's not attached. So you don't have to release it. It's not sticking to you. It's just like reading a book. You can close the book
Yeah.
and say, I'm done reading that. I don't need to experience that anymore. Done.
End of story.
Instead of like, oh my gosh, this place feels so creepy. I gotta get out of here.
Yeah.
And then really what's happening is you running out the door is your intention to disconnect and so the connection is gone. Or if you feel victimized by it, you might feel like it followed you home when
Right.
really you're just
Yeah.
continuing to connect to that record.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense to me.
Yeah, and it's just such an empowering message because I think people have a lot of fear around objects and places. And, living here in Monroe, where the Warrens Museum is, and where
Right.
a lot of their objects were kept, people ask me, and I'm sure they ask you all the time, like, I think I asked you even recently, could you feel it when you drove by? Like, you drive by it all the time, right?
Yeah.
I never felt it there. I do feel I think we were talking about this last week. That's how this came up, actually. We are talking about. I feel in our town, I can feel certain areas, especially certain times of the year. Maybe I'm more open to it. I can feel the history of our town as I drive through certain parts. And it's just, I guess I'm allowing myself to access the records for that area at a
Right.
certain time, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and for me, it's like just the opposite, because as I said to you, it's like I live in my own little world, basically, and I, I don't let those energies in. I don't feel them unless I want to focus on them. I think my mind, my rationale says if I open to everything, I would feel everything and I couldn't deal with it. So I choose to keep myself in a space where I don't feel any of that energy unless I choose to. So, no, I don't feel the energy. And I think it's because I keep myself basically protected by keeping myself in this uh, space.
Well, and I remember as we were having this conversation, we were driving, it's coming back to me now.
Yeah.
And we did drive right by the Warrens, and that's kind of how we started talking about it. And I was kind of like watching you out of the corner of my eye while I was driving, and I could see you kind of now tuning in deeper to the different places we were driving by. And I said, what do you got there, Ginny? And you're like, well, now I'm really just feeling everything. And I'm realizing how I don't allow myself to do that.
Yeah.
And that's interesting to notice that, you know.
Yeah, it can be very overwhelming. I know it's like one of my daughters doesn't like to go into New York City and she just didn't like to go. But what I know about that is she doesn't like to go there or in crowded places because she feels all that energy. And it's like she's beginning to know that, but she's not ready to open herself up yet to what we know, and she will in time. But it's like, and I always smile, and it's like, yes, I know, I understand why you don't like to go in crowded stores or um, New York City or places where there are a lot of people, a lot of energy.
Every time I'd go into the city for work, it's the first thing I would do when I get home is take a shower. I just felt gross, and I don't know if that was like the actual dirtiness or the energy, but
You picked up. Yeah,
I would need to shower.
yeah.
So, okay, well, keeping on this theme, which by the way, I want to share an experience I just had as we were talking about this, and this happens often when we do this show, is I got shivery inside,
Mhm.
shaky and cold. And I'm sharing that experience because maybe someone at home watching this is having similar experiences. I'm also very itchy, which to me is like nervous system stuff. I don't know. I guess like I want to acknowledge that and I want to make sense of it if it's relevant. Is that some sort of a me releasing fear around things that I might have had fear, and now these answers are bringing about clarity and peace? Or if other people are having this experience at home, like what can the multitude say about that?
It is important to understand the body reacts to whatever it is that is happening on the physical level and also on the energetic level. When one allows oneself to feel and heal on the energetic level, it is often felt on the physical level in ways that you have explained, but also perhaps as a pain or as a quick flinch of something, and then it goes away really quickly. Sometimes it is that part of oneself that is just healing, healing, healing on the energetic level, and really doesn't have a whole lot to do with the physical body other than the reaction of the change in energy of the physical body. Do not be concerned.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
That last sentence says it all to me. It's the change of energy within that react your physical body is reacting to.
Yeah, and what it feels like to me personally is the change is coming out of a fearful place and coming into a more expanded place. And so the shaking is the transition.
Okay.
I don't know. That's what it felt like to me.
Yeah. But if that's what it is to you, then that's what it is.
Okay. All right. I have one more question. I have a couple more, but I'm also cognizant of time.
Right.
Um, Still on this idea of energy of place. Okay, so like for example, I remember hearing a medium talk about his experience at the Gettysburg battle site. And um, oftentimes people will feel like, oh, I felt all this energy, so I cleared it. And you hear a lot of people who like go and they clear, I felt all this energy, so I'm gonna clear it. Like they're doing an enormous favor. And sometimes I feel like there's some ego involved there, like, but maybe it's a method of them feeling empowered within this energy that makes them uncomfortable. I don't know. But what I know is that people will say that, but then other people will go back to the cemetery and feel it themselves. So clearly the energy's not cleared. Um, I guess I'm looking for them to explain that phenomenon. What comes to me is like maybe the person who's there clearing has some sort of resonance or experience there, like in a past life, they were at Gettysburg and maybe that's why they feel it so heavily. Or they've opened up to themselves to allow that feeling. But then the clearing, then they feel peaceful, but then somebody else comes and they feel it. What can the multitude say about what's happening in those examples?
It is important to understand that each one is responsible for healing and clearing each one's own self. And if it is that it is a catalyst for one to heal and clear oneself, then that is what it is, just a catalyst. When one visits a certain space, so to speak, and allows oneself to clear, what actually is happening is that person is clearing, as you well know, that part of self that resonates with that energy. However, the energy is that part of self that says, I need help, I need clearing, and I need to be free. Therefore, one allows oneself to clear that energy within oneself. However, if another comes to the same area and feels that energy, it is in and within that person that is requiring the healing and the clearing. It is not the area itself, it is the person's relationship or thought process around that area that causes the regeneration of the feeling. However, the feeling is the person's and not the areas. Do not be concerned.
I love that. I don't think I need to like expand on it. I think that's beautiful. It's an inside job and it's all about the self.
Yeah.
And again, it's empowering that like you don't have to feel victim to going to a place.
So
And
yeah, I'm sorry. Go
no,
ahead.
no, go ahead.
What that brings up for me is like the earth energy. The earth has its own energy, and the earth has a way of healing and clearing its own energy. So I'm thinking, that's my thoughts, is if something happens somewhere and the earth needs to change that energy, she will do it. But if someone comes to that spot with the belief that there is an energy here and I need to help it, or I can feel it. It is, as they say, their own, they're clearing their own self and their own energy and their own maybe past life experiences.
Yeah, and I think that's such like a great perspective because then you can go to these places and ask like, oh, this feeling I'm feeling, am I tapping into the Akashic records? Or am I in resonance with the feeling I'm feeling? If so, is it calling out for healing? Well, let me just do that right now
Yeah,
and intend to clear it. And then if you don't feel it anymore, then you know.
yeah,
Or maybe you feel something else, or you feel it again, and maybe there's layers to it,
yeah.
um, to clearing, and perhaps the human curiosity leads us to, like, for example, okay, so you went to Gettysburg, you cleared it, but then you're still intrigued by like this other place, and maybe that's helping you to acknowledge another aspect of self that allows you to heal the next layer. Really cool.
So did you have one more question related to all this, or is it a different question?
I do, and actually it was your question that day when we were talking, so I feel like we should ask it.
Yeah.
And it has to do with the idea of exorcism. And so it's like, you know, what I typed here was, can energies be exorcised? Is that an issue? So it's like, um, now I don't know if you were meaning people, places, or objects, but maybe they can address all three.
It is important to understand that when one acknowledges there is an issue, there is an issue. When one acknowledges that the issue needs to be cleared, one is able to heal in its own way. When another offers help in the way of exorcism or any other way, it is just a perspective of help. It is not the other person healing the person. It is the person clearing one's own energy with the help of another's energy. When one believes that the exorcism or the what do I want to say? Ritual, the ritual that had been performed was helping, or actually did the work. It is important to understand the ritual itself has no power. It is the person's belief that they are healed allows them to heal themselves in spirit. Do not be concerned.
And so that belief has to happen on the conscious earth plane, or can it also happen on the soul level?
It is basically an earth plane idea of no value in the spiritual level.
Awesome.
Yeah, good to know.
As we were doing this episode, I had a little spider crawling up here, and I just thought about the spider weaving its web, and I don't know, I just think about energy sometimes like that, the connection and where the weaving of life. It's good animal medicine while we're recording, I think.
Yes.
I know that's not your thing.
No, not really. No.
Awesome. What a great episode. And for those listening, if you're still intrigued about, like, we're leaving off on this idea of exorcism, there's at least one, maybe more episodes where we do cover that in greater detail. I don't know which one. You can look at the titles for clues. You probably don't remember that we did it, Ginny.
I don't remember. Unfortunately, I don't. I have to go back and listen to them myself.
Yeah, it was probably around Halloween time because that's usually when I get the vibe on this stuff because people are talking about ghosts, and so it's probably look for a release date of like September, October, November,
Yeah.
probably of 2024 or 2023. So
Wow, we've been doing this that long. Wow.
actually, no, I don't think we've released for a year. I think we've only been releasing for a year.
Yeah, we've been
So
recording for more.
we've been recording for more, so it would have been the recording date would have been either 24 or 23. So
Yeah.
great stuff, very empowering, very demystifying, I think. I think, Ginny, one of your gifts is, and the multitude as well, is to help demystify some of these mystical experiences to make sense of it in a very practical way that empowers people, that releases fear around it, that reminds you that you're in charge and that you don't have to be victim to energy or some of the way that culture spins this stuff to make it sound like you are disempowered. So I really, and just having that visceral experience of myself releasing, I didn't think I had fear left on this, but I must have. That's what it felt like, fear releasing. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Yeah,
So if anyone is interested in either of our services, our information is in the information below. Feel free to contact either one of us. And thank you all for listening. And thank you, Kelly, for your questions.
thanks for letting me ask. And
Okay.
thanks to the multitude.
You're quite welcome.
All right, we'll see everyone next time on the Self Connection.
Bye.
Bye.